It was medieval Germany. A woman's husband was found dead in the woods behind his house, face down with an axe in his chest. The neighbors had heard him and his wife arguing earlier, and so they recounted to the magistrate what she yelled as he left the house that morning. "Mark what I tell you, husband," she said. "You'll be dead before the sun sets." The authorities decided that there were only two possibilities. One, she was a bitter wife turned axe murderer. Or two, she was a witch with the power to bring her dark prophecy to pass. Either way, she must die for her crime. In 1 week, she would be transported to the royal city Aachen. She would be hanged there. Fortunately for her, the king visited her village later that day and wanted to inspect the prison conditions. And the sound of gentle weeping drew him down the dark corridor to her cell. He approached the bars and inquired the cause of her imprisonment. "I am falsely convicted, Your Majesty." "Tell me what happened." "My husband was not well. I insisted that he rest, but he was a stubborn man. We argued about this often. Winter was coming, and on the morning he died, he thought to cut a season's worth of firewood in the forest behind our cottage. I begged him not to go, but in his pride, he pushed me aside and rushed out the door. I yelled that he'd be dead by sunset, but I only hoped to persuade him to return to my care. It did not work. 2 hours later, in the strain of the labor, his heart failed him. He must have stuck the double-bladed axe in the ground before him to clutch his chest, as he so often had done before. Then he must have fallen upon it. That's how they found him. I loved him, Your Majesty. I would never have killed him." The king, being an honest man himself, could hear the truth in her voice. And he said, "When you come next week for the monthly hangings before the royal palace, and it's your turn to take the noose, I shall stand and declare your pardon before all. Then I will take you into my palace and care for you for the rest of your life." The woman was overjoyed because she knew what all of Germany knew. This king was a good man, compassionate, just, trustworthy. His word was his bond. Everybody knew it. And so the week flew by on happy wings. The day arrived. Thousands gathered before the palace for the hangings. A dozen or so that morning had already swung on the rope to which she had been condemned. But she did not fret. She had the promise of a good king to comfort her in her holding cell. And so when she took her place on the gallows, she turned bright eyes to the balcony whereupon the throne of the king was set. But she did not recognize the face of the man who sat upon it. "Where is the king?" she said to the executioner. "That is the king, witch." "Since when?" "Since his father died on the trip back from your village." Locked away in the town prison, she had not gotten the news. And when the new king nodded to the hangman, she understood that he knew nothing of his father's promise of pardon for her. But she did not blame the dead monarch for her fate. She knew that if he could, the king would burst open his royal tomb, rush into the midst of the proceedings and save her, just as her husband would have done in her trial back home. But death held them both fast, as it does all of us when our time comes. Even this good king could not shake off its icy shackles. So resigned to join the king and her husband, the woman, the innocent woman, calmly stepped onto the stool and and presented her neck for the loop. She did not speak. Others had been begging for their lives all morning to no avail. She could hear their earnest pleas through the barred windows of her cell, one after another, crying, screaming, pleading. Only the snapping of the hangman's noose silenced them. And as the slack in the rope disappeared, her last thought was, "Oh, that good kings were immortal." Her king was good, but his word was not good, because even a good man can only keep his word if he is alive to keep it. At the end of the day, death can make liars out of us all. Every one of us. Every one of us except one. There is one man, one king, whose word even death cannot hinder. It is the Lord Jesus Christ. His empty tomb says, you can rest assured the word of this good king will come to pass, because even death could not hold him.